Welcome to the shop, my friends. Steve here at SKS Props, and in today's video, it's a little bit different. One question that I receive quite often is, how do I deal with burnout? And yes, I deal with burnout. All content creators deal with burnout. It's a very, very real thing. And everyone deals with burnout in their own way. And first off, I'm going to say, I'm not a doctor, and so if you have mental issues when it comes to this kind of stuff, you need to talk to someone, definitely do that. These are just things that I deal with and kind of the situations that I've gone through and how I kind of rectify it in the end and continue to put one foot in front of the other. So my earliest recollection when it really comes to burnout as a maker, as a creator, as a crafter, actually goes back to before I was a fabricator for cosplay props and costumes. It was the very last job I took as a freelance illustrator. And at that point in time, I was working on a story. It was like a children's book. And I hated it. I hated the story. I hated the art direction that I was having to draw in. And I just had absolutely no fun. And when it comes to crafting or making in general, I don't care what your profession is, eventually, if you have to do something, you're eventually going to hate it and you're going to have some type of a burnout. Now, when it comes to burnout, one of the things that I highly recommend is switch your focus of what you're working on. So like at that point in time, I was an illustrator, I was drawing all the time, and that's when I learned about the replica prop forum. And I'd started to get into, hey, people build their own props and costumes. That's really cool. And I started to get into the whole sculpting, molding and casting aspect of it. And as soon as that freelance illustration job was done, I was like, I'm not drawing anything for a very long time. And I really dove headfirst into the whole crafting, molding, casting experience of making my own props and costumes. And that was a lot of fun because it was not what I did on a daily basis. Now, I've been doing this for about 12, 13 years now, a very, very long time. It seems, especially in my head, it seems like a very long time. During most of that, cosplay was still very fun to me because it was not my main job. I had a real job, and then the whole cosplay hobby side of it was what I did when I wasn't at my real job. So it's like, you'd go through the whole day and you'd be excited to go home because you got to work on something. Once you take your hobby and you make it your real job, then it becomes a little more difficult, right? So throughout the years, my cosplay experience had grown and grown and grown. And at one point in time, my Warcraft orc had won at C2E2. I was starting to get more of a name for myself for the whole costuming side of it. And I decided I was going to try out for a TV show called Cosplay Melee. Now, this show was very similar to Face Off on Sci-Fi. It was a group of costumers. We had a couple of days to put an entire costume together, which on its own is stressful enough. But on top of that, I was also violently ill with food poisoning during filming. Now, I wouldn't let them say anything about it on camera or anything like that because if I was lost or if there was an issue, I didn't want it to be an excuse. But it was absolutely terrible because imagine being in a shop where you have every tool and material you could ever ask for, but you feel so bad that you do not want to be there. So after I was done with this program, the program itself went well, but I went home and I was like, I don't want to build anything. And at that point in time, it was really weird for me because it'd been, again, 4 or 5 years, I think, from that point of starting the whole illustration into cosplay and then out of cosplay. And I actually went back into illustration for a little bit. That's where I kind of developed my own IP for Wasteland Alice, which is a post-apocalyptic Alice in Wonderland story. And I created all the characters. We did a coloring book. I did playing cards. And I did a Kickstarter based off of this. And again, illustration was fun because it wasn't crafting every day. It was going back to something that I enjoyed, but because it wasn't my job, it didn't feel like a burden to me. So after the Kickstarter had completed, I spent a ton of time drawing all these characters, coming up with all this, months and months and months. So after I was done with that project, I was ready to get back into costuming and cosplaying. And that's when I had really started to get into bigger and better, right? We're always trying to improve ourselves. And that's when I did like the Theron Guard from Gears of War. I won TwitchCon with that. The problem with bigger and better is that it's constantly moving your own goalpost, right? And that goalpost can only move so far before it's not going to move anymore. And after I'd won C2E2 and TwitchCon and Cosplay Melee, I kind of called myself like quits on competing. And that kind of refocused a lot of things because normally I have to get these costumes done for the competition. So it puts that deadline of constantly getting something done. This has to be done today so I can work on this tomorrow. That type of a stress environment that you put upon yourself is also not necessarily the best, health wise, mentally wise, anything like that. Once I was free of the costume competition side of it, it did feel like kind of a weight off because, like, well, now I'm only building for me. I'm not having to go up against other competitors. I'm not having to please a judge. Is this good enough or is this good enough? Now I can build what I want to build, and I once again felt free. And at this point in time, I'm going to a bunch of conventions a year, like 7 to 12 conventions a year, traveling all over the place, and people that know me know I am definitely an introvert. I enjoy being in my shop much more than being in a large crowded area. The only thing that really saves me when I go to cons is that I'm behind the booth. So it's kind of like my barrier or my shield. Once COVID hit and everybody was in quarantine, there were no more cons. So I'm like, all right, at this point, how do I grow my business? Because right before that is when I launched HD Foam. So at that point, I determined, you know what? This is just the next chapter in my ability to kind of help the community. I'm going to start YouTube. And thanks to good friends of mine like Bill Duran of Punished Props, he had been poking and prodding me for years to do the whole YouTube thing. And I felt, you know what, if anything else, this is the best time. And it kept me extremely busy for all of the quarantine time because I put out a video a week, if not more than that. Which was great. I was very busy doing that. I didn't have to think about things in the outside world. I could control everything within my shop. And that was awesome. It gets to that point though, again, if you're doing that much content creation, it'll drag on you because again, every week it's like, all right, Monday, got to come up with whatever I'm going to make. Got to come up with the template. Tuesday, got to finish the template, start the build, start filming. Wednesday, I've got to actually get all the way through, blah, blah, blah. It's a continual process of every week I had kind of a schedule of what needed to be done. It drags on you because at that point in time, I was doing a whole bunch of videos. Also behind the scenes, you guys don't really see it, but I usually work with 1 or 2 big companies a year doing stuff, especially like video game companies, where it's not usually foam. It's all hand sculpted, molded, resin cast, like legit stuff for commercials or for like where they're scanning it and putting it into the game, that sort of thing. And at the height of like my YouTube kind of production is when I got the email to do something for Elden Ring. Extremely excited because I absolutely love the whole idea of Elden Ring. I had just finished Bloodborne. I'd been playing Dark Souls. Elden Ring looked awesome. And in my mind, I really wanted to do it. In my heart, I really wanted to do it. I should have just said no. And it's because the entire project was 35 days start to finish, which is insane. Actually, I had to bring on help. I had to bring on William from Ashen Warrior Props. And it was still, though, it was one of those things where as soon as I signed the contract, the weight immediately came back onto me. And I was in the shop every day, 10 to 12 hours a day, every day, sometimes even a little bit more if I had to get stuff done. And I tell you what, 350 plus hours within 35 days, that will wear on you. And, it was a good experience, though. I'm not putting down the project. I just wish I had more time. So once we got back from LA, we got done with all the shoots that they had us do out there. It was just like when I came back from Cosplay Melee, I don't want to build anything. It was in my brain of like, I just don't want to be in the shop. And what really, really bothered me is I knew I had to be in the shop because I'm like, I have to get another video out type of a scenario. And I came out and I tried to make this Sandman helmet. And I tried 3 times to get my prototype right, and I could not get it done. And it was extremely frustrating for me because it's almost like I had broken that ability to create by pushing myself too hard. I mean, it's the only way I can really explain is that when I build stuff like this, I can 3D explode it in my head and kind of see the shapes that make it up. When it came to making the shapes for this, I couldn't do it. I tried 3 times and I failed. And I knew at that point that I need to step back. And there's nothing wrong with stepping back. If this isn't your job, if this is your hobby, step back. Take 2 hours, 2 days, 2 months, 2 years. Don't ever come back to it at all. You never know. But I knew that I could not continue to come out here and bang my head against the wall. And so I didn't. I played video games. I played Elden Ring. I beat Elden Ring. I spent a lot of time with my family. We did walks every day. It was just that whole kind of a detox of fabrication that I needed. And after about 10 days, which is how long it took me to beat Elden Ring, I was like, all right, I'm ready to get back in the shop. But I knew as soon as I walked in, I saw Sandman sitting in the corner, and I was like, I just don't even want to deal with you right now. And so I knew I had to do something simplistic, but something I wanted to do. So I made Hellboy. Now, the thing that's great about my super simple masks is there's not a lot to them, but when you look at this, you still get the point across of what it is. And I love these because people that are brand new to the channel, brand new to crafting and foam smithing, anyone can print off this template and put it together. So it was that way of, it wasn't as difficult as Sandman, but it was a way for me to kind of start to rebuild that ability to craft. And I don't even know how to explain that I broke that ability, but I did. So after I had done the Hellboy series, so I did the mask, I did the Right-Handed Doom, and I did the gun. I was like, you know what? I need to do something that I want to do that is detailed, but it's something that I've put off for a while. And I still saw Sandman sitting over the corner, and I'm like, no, I still don't want to mess with you yet. So that's when I decided to do the Warhammer Dwarf. And this is going great. There's nothing wrong with it. It's doing exactly what I want it to do. But I've been working on this for over a month. I got the helmet, I got the chest, I got the shoulder pads, and all of it looks awesome, But I got to that point of man, I've been working on this for so long. I kind of need a break from it before I don't like it, before I do something to the costume that I'm not happy with. So I decided it was time to take a break from it. Now, normally, again, the Elden Ring armor is 35 days, start to finish. I've been working on this for a month, but I've been working on it for a month, making the templates, making the actual helmet itself, and doing the videos. It just takes 2 to 3 to 4 times as long to build this stuff when I'm doing it for a video. So then it came to the point of I really wanted to have this done for Adam Savage's Silicon at the end of August. I knew that wasn't going to happen. So I switched my focus. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get it to a point that I like it, and I'm going to take it raw so people can see that it is just foam. So at that point, again, the weight is off of me. I'm not feeling that pressure to get it completed, get it done, get it out there. That's when I decided I was going to go back to Sandman. And I pulled out the 3 prototypes that I had done. All 3 of them were pretty terrible. I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. When you see my videos, again, I've explained in the past where when you see these things that I create, it is not the first time I make it and it's absolutely perfect. A lot of these things that I do, I make a prototype, and I might make 2 prototypes or 3 prototypes before I get something that works. So I took all 3 of those prototypes, I actually put them down in the basement so I would not even have to look at them, and I started all over again. And this time, it worked. I started from scratch, I got the fresh eyes on it, and I was able to create the shapes and the size and the scale and everything that I wanted it to be. Now, my family knows that depending on how I am in the shop, my mood will depend a lot on what they hear coming from the door. So when I have my music going, if I've got Pandora on and I've got Rob Zombie radio, and so I've got Rob Zombie and Metallica and Pantera and all of some of my favorite rock, they know things are going good. If they hear classical music, if they hear movie scores, they know that I'm straining with this. Something's not quite right. And it's that thing of the rock music gets me going. I know everything's going great. The classical music or the movie scores soothe me. And so, like, if things are not going great, something about having that music available. I'll have Gatorade out here. I'll make sure to stay hydrated. It's just having this a comfortable, soothing environment to create is very, very important to me. And if none of that is working, then again, I will just take a break. I'll put it down. I'll go outside for, 10, 15 minutes. I may just say that I'm done with the day, and I'll go downstairs and I'll start editing the first half of the video or something like that rather than continue to work on it. Don't feel that just because social media is constantly bombarding you with what everyone else is doing, that's what you need to do too. That's not the case. And that type of a mentality is something that I have had to wrestle with personally. It's because I see all my peer friends that have amazing channels with hundreds of thousands of followers, and like my channel isn't up there yet. You start to get that discouragement in there, but then you have the people that comment and they're like, hey, I really love what you do. I love the fact that you explain everything in all your videos. That kind of stuff recharges my battery. It allows me to kind of keep chugging along. And as long as you're moving forward, right? One foot in front of the other, that's a big part to crafting overall, as being an artist overall, is overcoming adversities, right? Most art that's great is because it is built out of your pain and your suffering. And if cosplaying and creating stuff like this, or even drawing, illustrating, isn't a reflection of your pain and suffering, then I don't know what's a better metaphor. So the big takeaway from this is when you see content creators like me and others that are out there, and we're constantly putting out new builds and new videos and all these elaborate things that we do, understand that the burnout, the pressure that we place upon ourselves, not from the community, it's not from you guys, it's pressure that we put on ourselves, is very, very real. Don't think that this is just, sunshine and bunnies every day, because it's not. There are days that I come out here and it's just not fun. But I know that as a content creator, I try to push my way through that. But as a more experienced at least, content creator, I've realized now that there's only so much I can push. There's only so far I can go. And I'm starting to understand when I just need to call something quits, when I need to start over, when I need to do something completely different. And there's nothing wrong with that. So hopefully this video kind of helps reassure some of you that are out there that have those feelings of, I'm not doing enough. None of us ever feel like we're doing enough, but we are, okay? Whatever you're doing is enough. If you're putting out a new video, that's enough. If you're working on a brand new project, that is enough. But the main thing is have fun. And if you're not having fun, there's no point in doing this. But burnout, just realize all of us content creators that you see online, all of the huge names that you see in cosplay and whatnot, all of us have burnout. I have talked to so many of my friends at conventions, not on the floor, but like behind the scenes, where we just talk about, man, like putting out a video every week kind of sucks. But it's that thing of like, once you hit, export, and it starts like going on and downloading, you feel good about that situation. But leading up to it, there is a lot that goes into it. So don't think that all the time, like when you see Steve on screen, happy as can be and everything, it's very, very possible that earlier in that day, I didn't want to do that video at all. So hopefully this is like shed some light on what content creators do, what we do when it comes to burnout, and how you can deal with it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you can learn something from it. And again, have fun crafting.